Hey guys, it's Chris with Plyometry, and today I am reviewing the Koda Heavy Hitter Jump Brake Cue from Seabirds. This is the metallic black. It's pretty sleek. Of course, it has the jump brake section you can break apart here, and it has a phenolic tip with a standard maple shaft. And it comes in at the standard 25 ounces, although it does have the Lucasi weight bolts, and I think you can get another ounce or so in here if you work to customize it. But the main reason I wanted this cue when I already have a lot of good brake cues is the uniloc pin, which is sort of unique. What this would allow me to do is to compare. I dropped my P3 down to 17 ounce, my BK Rush at my preferred 22, and now with this making a 25 ounce cue, I could crisscross and quickly change out the butts to these two shafts. I really was mainly interested in the BK Rush at a higher weight and quickly comparing it, but also why not at the same time give a go at the stock shaft that Koda provided with their with the phenolic tip and see if that's any good on its own. So that's what I did. Another round of tests coming your way. Here are the top 10 of 20 brakes in my test run. In terms of the run numbers, I'm mainly curious about how the Revo brake shaft produced using the 25 ounce Koda uniloc butt, and it did not disappoint. Notice it broke 20 miles per hour more times than any other combination in the lineup and never once fell below 19 miles an hour. When I isolate the performance by weight and shaft, it is obvious the Koda shaft with the phenolic tip produced a very competitive average of 19 miles an hour, but was still no match for the lethal Revo brake shaft. Also interesting, while the lighter weight combinations predictably fared slower than the heavy combinations, the production seemed to plateau at the 22 ounce marker. Though I generally prefer a heavier cue, if the 22 and 25 ounce versions offer virtually the same production, I'll just stick with the 22 stock BK Rush. In the back of my head, I was also curious about making the BK Rush shaft into a jump cue. Now, obviously, Predator already sells this option stock if you want, but not in such a way that you would have it with a 25 ounce brake cue. So this would be unique, the combination of being able to go from a 25 ounce brake cue straight to a jump cue. So what I did is a couple tests for jumping. I tested a ball about one ball away, about a foot away, and about a half table away. And I found both shafts, the BK Rush shaft and the Koda shaft, were more than adequate as a jump cue for this sort of scenario. In both cases, you can jump about a foot. I could even jump over a ball half table. With both cues, both shafts were more than adequate. However, for both shafts, when the object ball got within about 2 balls distance, it becomes very hard to jump with this cue, but that's not a flaw in the shafts themselves. It's really the nature of a jump brake cue. Because you have a second pin in the back, jump brake cues as a jump shaft ends up pretty heavy. This is like 11.4 ounces. And that makes it very hard to do a dart stroke when you have such a heavy cue. Normally you need something more in the 9 ounce range. So let me just try it here. Let me see if I can do more of a dart stroke to get over this ball 2 balls away. But it is very hard to execute because this stick just gets out of the way. I think if I slowed that down, you'd see a double hit with the cue because the cue is not deflecting out of the way. However, I can show if I just take off the back and this now becomes a light shaft, it is going to jump just fine, although not legal for play in most scenarios. But it's just showing that this can produce that. It's just too heavy on the back end. Overall, I am really impressed by the Koda Jump Brake Cue. I think it's a great value in the $200 range. I'd put it right on par with my trusty Action 25 cue. This has the leather tip, of course. This has been in my other videos and always been reliable. And my new, this is the Band 27 Elite. I like this cue a lot too. I think these are all almost equally good in terms of how they hit. I, however, am going to keep my BK Rush in the lineup. It just happens to be the best cue. And between these three, I'm going to only keep one. I'm going to keep this one simply because it's the heaviest. If I were actually buying a cue to bring as my main cue, I'd probably go with the Koda Jump Brake Cue, and I might consider changing this out to a leather tip. That's always going to be of interest to me. I do not care for phenolic tips, even though this one performed very well. I also don't need the jumping ability as I have other jump cues. So although I do think these are excellent cues, I'm going to start to sell some of my cues because I don't need that many. These two will be adequate for my practice and play.